Have you ever stopped and wondered why you make certain choices? Why some decisions feel like a snap judgment, while others feel like, well, like pulling teeth? Today, we're going to jump right into Daniel Kahneman's incredible book, Thinking Fast and Slow, to meet the two characters that are basically running the show inside your head 24/7. All right, let's kick things off with a super simple question. Just look at these two things. Which one feels automatic, almost instant? And which one makes your brain kind of groan and have to actually switch on? The answer to this little puzzle is the key to this whole idea. And there they are. Meet the two stars of your mind. System 1 is that gut reaction. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's what saw that angry face and knew what it was in a fraction of a second. System 2, well, that's your slower, more deliberate mind. It's the one you have to consciously wake up to even think about doing that math problem. System 1 is on all the time, running in the background. Well, System 2, let's just say it's a bit lazy and likes to chill out. So here's our game plan for this little journey into your brain. First, we'll properly get to know these two characters. Then we're going to expose the invisible traps that our thinking falls into. After that, we'll dive into the wild, emotional world of gains and losses, explore the weird way your memory actually works, and finally, we'll figure out how we can use all this to think just a little bit smarter. Okay, so let's really dig into these two characters. System 1 is kind of the hero of the story, right? It makes thousands of decisions for you every single day, completely effortlessly. System 2 is supposed to be the sensible one, the editor, the fact-checker. But here's the catch. A lot of the time, it's a lazy controller. It just lets System 1 run wild and do whatever it wants. And this brings us to System 1's biggest flaw. Kahneman has this fantastic name for it, YSIAT. It stands for what you see is all there is. And it means exactly that. Our fast-thinking brain takes the information that's right in front of it, and that's it. It doesn't ask, what am I missing? It just confidently builds a story with the pieces it has. And that's the real problem with YCAT. System 1 is a master storyteller. It'll jump to a conclusion and create a story that feels totally coherent and believable. But that story might be completely wrong just because it's missing a few key details. System 1 is built for speed, not for accuracy. So let's move on and see where this leads us. Because System 1 is always taking these shortcuts, they're called heuristics, it ends up creating these invisible traps for our thinking. These shortcuts are useful most of the time, but they can also lead us into making some really predictable mistakes. Let's talk about a classic trap, the anchoring effect. Imagine you're out shopping and you see something you like with a price tag of, say, 10,000 rupees. That number, it doesn't matter if it's reasonable or totally crazy, is now stuck in your head. It's become your anchor. So what happens next? The seller comes over and says, but for you, I'll give it to you for 8,000. How do you feel? You feel amazing. You feel like you just got the deal of a lifetime, right? Your entire sense of what that item is worth was just manipulated by that first number you saw. That's your System 1 being anchored. And anchoring is just one of many of these mental traps. Think about the availability heuristic. Whenever there's a plane crash in the news, we all instinctively feel like flying is super dangerous, right? Even though statistically, it's one of the safest ways to travel. Our brain just makes a simple mistake. It thinks that if something is easy to remember, it must be common. This leads us right into our next section, which is all about how our emotions play this game with our choices. It turns out we are not the logical creatures we think we are, especially when risk is involved. This is the stuff that actually won Kahneman the Nobel Prize. It's called prospect theory. The absolute core of this entire theory can be boiled down to this one powerful sentence. For our brains, for our emotional System 1, the pain of a loss is a much, much bigger deal than the pleasure of a gain. Just think about it like this. The happiness you feel when you find 100 rupees on the street is nice, for sure. But the awful, gut-wrenching feeling of losing 100 rupees, that feeling is about twice as powerful. This loss aversion messes with all our financial decisions, making us way more cautious than we probably should be. All right, now for an idea that is genuinely mind-bending. When you're making a choice about your life, like planning a vacation, who are you actually planning it for? Are you making it for the person who's going to live through it moment by moment, or for the person who's going to remember it later? It turns out there are two different yous to think about. So on one side, you have your experiencing self. This is the you that lives completely in the present, feeling every second of happiness or boredom or pain. But then there's the remembering self. This is the storyteller. It's the one that looks back, edits the whole experience into a neat little story, and decides if it was good or bad. And guess which one gets to make all your future decisions? You got it. The storyteller, the remembering self, is the boss. So how does this storyteller self decide if the story was good? It uses a shortcut called the peak end rule. It doesn't bother averaging out all the moments. Nope. It basically just remembers two things: the single most intense moment, that's the peak, and how things felt right at the very end. The entire length of the experience, how long it lasted, almost totally irrelevant. Okay, so we've talked about all these flaws and biases and weird mental traps. What are we supposed to do about it all? Well, that brings us to our last and probably most useful section. How do we actually use this knowledge to make better decisions? Now, the most important takeaway is this. The goal is not to get rid of System 1. You couldn't, even if you wanted to. It's what lets you drive a car and have a conversation at the same time. The real goal, the real superpower, is learning to recognize the moments where your intuition is likely to lead you astray, and then consciously call in the big guns, your analytical System 2. And you can think about it as a simple 3-step plan. First, just recognize. Get that feeling that, hey, this is a high-stakes decision or my emotions are running high here. Second, pause. Just take a breath. Don't fall for that instant gut reaction from System 1. And third, engage. Force yourself to wake up System 2. Ask questions. Look for the information you're missing. Think it through. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. The next time you're facing a really important choice, either at work or in your life, just stop for a second and ask yourself, who's about to make this decision? System 1 or System 2? Just being aware of those two minds inside of you is the first and most important step toward making a smarter choice.